Time to pull up a chair. We've got another great story for you today in the rLounge. Helping her twin sister is one thing, but funding her loser boyfriend's dreams? Not today. Today in the rLounge, sometimes the best way to help someone is by letting them figure it out for themselves. Twin sister blew off my money on her loser boyfriend without regret. I cut her off financially without remorse. I, 24 male, feel exploited by my twin sister. Shelly, 24 female, for over 3 years, and now it feels just too much for me. I really don't know how to deal with the situation right now, so maybe some advice or a little perspective from this community might help. My sister and I have always been close. Though I was just 6 minutes older than her, I always took her as my baby sister. We grew up together, but our lives took different turns when I left home after high school. We don't come from a rich background. My parents worked hard to put meals on our table. We went to community school, but I was adamant about changing my future and not continuing the cycle of poverty. So after high school, I left my town and moved to a city. I joined a community college. Not that my town didn't have a community college, but enrolling in a cities gave me more exposure and also more options of a part-time job. I was impressed by the abundance of part-time jobs in the city. I asked Shelly to join me at the college, but she refused. She wasn't so keen on studying further. She also worked odd jobs in the hometown, but she never took it seriously and was often fired. I used to advise her about taking her life seriously, but she seldom listened to me. She got pregnant by a man who I can only describe as a loser. He's a junkie who refuses to work a stable job and spends most of his time drifting through life. He didn't even want to marry her. His only contribution was an offer to co-parent, which to me sounded more like an excuse to stay in her life without actually being responsible. He does odd jobs here and there, barely enough to afford 2 meals a day. When my parents got to know about this, they called the guy and asked him to get married. He refused it up front. My dad got furious and kicked him out. My sister moved in with him in his studio during her pregnancy and postpartum, after which they both shifted to the city for better opportunities. After a while, he said he got a stable job in a different city and he moved out. He promised to take her once he settled down in the new city. Sadly, that day never came and he vanished into thin air, abandoning Shelly and her son. She was hoping he would send her the money, but delusional that man is no good. Shelly worked her butt off doing whatever odd job she could find. Between taking care of her son and working, she barely managed to get by. Then, 3 years back, she was standing at my door with her 4-month-old baby and a big suitcase. As soon as I entered the door, she hugged me and started howling. She told me about her miserable life and I couldn't stop myself from helping her. I got her an apartment and covered for a year's lease. I've always been more financially stable than her. I managed to get a degree and landed a decent job. Even though I'm not rich, I'm doing well enough to live in a relatively comfortable life. So, out of kindness and a sense of sibling duty, I started helping her out financially. It wasn't much at first, just covering some of her bills and helping with groceries, but it slowly became a regular thing. Every month, I'd send her some allowance to ease her burden. At first, it felt like the right thing to do. Shelly was incredibly grateful, and I felt good knowing that I was helping my nephew. My only condition was that she would try to learn a skill or get a better paying job so she could eventually become independent. I mean, she's my twin, and I didn't want to see her struggle for the rest of her life. But as time went on, I noticed that Shelly wasn't trying to better her situation. She was simply riding the wave of my generosity. I had multiple conversations with her about learning a skill, getting a better paying job, or at least securing more stable work hours. She always agreed with me, but never took any serious steps. Her excuse was that she couldn't manage to take any classes while working 2 jobs and caring for her baby. She also claimed she didn't have the money to upskill, and since I wasn't about to pay for her rent and classes at the same time, I let it slide for a while. Then, last year, I got a bonus at work. It was unexpected and I had no plans of using that money in the near future. So, I thought Shelly could benefit from this, and it could be the perfect opportunity for her to finally take a step forward. She had been talking about how she wanted to take a nail art class. Now, I'm no expert, and I was a bit skeptical about nail art being a high-paying skill, but she assured me that it was in demand in our area. According to her, several local salons had vacancies, and once she got certified, she'd be able to start earning decent money almost immediately. So I took a leap of faith and handed her the money for the class. I told her this was it. She needed to enroll as soon as possible and get on with it. I made it clear that it wasn't just for her, but for her son's future too. For the first time in a while, I thought maybe this could be the turning point for her. Weeks passed, and every time I asked her if she had enrolled in the class, she came up with some excuse. First, it was because she was working 2 jobs and couldn't find the time and energy. Then, a month later, she dropped the bombshell. Her son had gotten sick and she had used the money I gave her for his medical needs. I freaked out. I was like, I gave my hard-earned money to you so that you could be financially independent, and you wasted that. She started crying and said her son was really sick and she didn't know what else to do, so she used up that money. I realized I was insensitive, but I was still puzzled about how could the medical bill for a common cold be so much. Then she said she had missed work while taking care of him, which meant her pay was docked, and she just didn't have any other way to make ends meet. So she used up the remaining money for the groceries and other bills. I was furious, but I also felt terrible. I mean, if her son was sick, she could not sit and watch him getting worse despite having the money in hand. But at the same time, the money was supposed to be used for her future, for her to stop living paycheck to paycheck. I told her that if she had needed help for her son's medical bills, she should have called me instead of using the money I gave her for the class. I would have helped her with the bills too, but she made the decision on her own, and now we were back to square one. Now the thing is, next quarter I'm due for a promotion and a hefty bonus. A week ago, Shelley visited me, and while she was still here, a couple of my friends dropped by and they congratulated me for the bonus in front of her. When they left, she spoke awkwardly. "Hey, I heard you're getting a bonus. Congratulations, I'm so proud of you." I thanked her, and we dropped that topic. The next day, she called me, again very awkwardly, and said, "Hey, I was wondering if I could use your bonus money to enroll in that nail art class." Before I could respond, she said, "I promise I will be diligent this time. Please help me. I don't want to be a burden on you. I cannot depend on you forever. I need to get stronger on my feet. I have to enroll my son in a preschool this year. I have to act now." She seemed pretty serious. I know whatever she said made sense. She cannot rely on me forever. I have my own crap to deal with. But the thing is, she has messed up once. Could be for a genuine reason, but I'm skeptical about giving her a second chance. Any suggestions, guys? It sounds like you've been incredibly patient and generous with your sister, but I totally get why you're feeling exploited. It's hard when someone you care about keeps making excuses instead of real progress, especially when you're the one footing the bill. You might want to set some firm boundaries this time. Let her know that while you want to see her succeed, you can't keep giving financial support unless she's serious about following through. Maybe suggest she take smaller steps first, like finding a more stable job before jumping into nail art classes again. Update 1. Phew, where do I even begin? Let me start with the good news. I got a promotion and a bonus amount way higher than my expectations, but here's the bummer. I blew it off. So after I received the bonus, Shelley bought me cheesecake from my favorite restaurant. I thanked her for the effort. I offered to pay for the cake, but she refused to take it and said this was the first time ever she had bought me something. She started sobbing at her helplessness, and I took her out for dinner. While eating, she casually mentioned a restaurant near her apartment that is offering on-job courses in culinary, but the employee has to pay for the culinary and cooking lessons, and after the completion of the course, they can join the restaurant as full-time employees. The pay was great, but the only challenge was one needed money to enroll for that course. I understood Shelley wasn't directly asking me for the money to get enrolled in the culinary class. I asked what made her change her mind from nail art class to culinary class. She said the opportunities and pay scale are better for a chef than a nail artist. I didn't take any further interest in that topic, but after a while she confronted she really wanted to join culinary class and become a chef. She wanted to come out of this poverty loop, and for that, she needed my help. She spoke with so much conviction that I agreed to fund her class. I genuinely wanted to see her get out of this mess, but this time I was more cautious. I told her that if I was going to give her this money again, she needed to enroll in the class immediately. To make things easier for her, I even told her to quit one of her low-paying jobs, and I'd cover the money she would have made from that, so she could use that time to focus on the class. At first, she resisted. She didn't want to take so much help from me, but I convinced her it was for the best. Stupid me. For the next 3 months, I sent her the amount of money she would have earned from her second job, believing that she was putting all her efforts into the course. I felt optimistic that this time things would work out. But every time I asked her how the classes were going and which dishes she learned, she dodged the question or gave vague answers. It started to sound fishy. I began to press her more. One day, I pestered her until she finally broke down and told me the truth. She hadn't enrolled in any classes and instead blew all the money on her deadbeat loser boyfriend. Apparently, he had come to visit her, and she blabbered about the money and her plans about enrolling in a culinary program. He manipulated her into giving him the money, saying that he needed it for something urgent. He is a junkie. What else could you expect from him? He even told her that he would be starting a business soon, and once that flew, he was going to marry her, and she, being the doormat that she is when it comes to him, handed all the money over like a puppy. I flipped out on hearing this. I scratched my head as to how someone could be so dumb. I lost my mind. I couldn't believe that she had squandered the money I had worked hard for on that waste of space. But the worst part? She had no regret. She didn't even seem sorry. Let me quote some of our conversation for you guys to gain some perspective. I was like, "How could you trust that man who abandoned you to fend for yourself and your son?" "How could I not trust him? He's the father of my son and he needs support too. Moreover, he promised he would marry me once the business was settled. He wants to start a garage and needs money to lease this place and buy equipment." "Did he lease the place with the money you gave? Did you see the place with your own 2 eyes?" I don't know. I can't find him after that day, rather that night. What the hell? How could you be so dumb? Do you realize you blew off your chance of a better future? I lectured her for a good 10 minutes about how she betrayed me by giving my hard-earned money. I felt so helpless and hurt I can't explain. I was almost in tears thinking about how hard I worked to earn that bonus. I told her all these and she replied with a cold voice. Her exact words were, "Well, if you think you're doing a favor on me by helping me, then you can opt out." I couldn't believe my ears. Like, really? Does she have no gratitude for what I've been doing for her for so many years? How could she say this so easily that I can opt out of helping her? Means my kindness meant nothing to her. She had no regrets that she lost her chance at a better future. I was left speechless. I sat down on the couch to process what she just said. I didn't expect this coming. Usually you get apologies in this kind of situation. Then I realized it was for my own good that she spoke that word by her own. I replied to her in a calm tone. Cool. If my money didn't add any value to your life, then probably I should stop pitching in. Before I could complete my sentence properly, she just shrugged and said, "Okay." No apologies. No promises to do better. She stood up and walked out. It's been a week since then. I've not heard anything from her. I still cannot fathom that I shared a womb with that dummy. Oh boy. She had one job, literally just one. Take the help you offered and turn her life around. And instead she doubled down on the deadbeat boyfriend who ghosted her again. You're not an ATM for bad decisions. And if she's not even grateful for the years of support, it's time to focus on your own life. You've done enough, OP. Update 2. Yeah, I was stupid. I made a fool of myself. I got scammed. I read all the comments. What can I say? Well, yes, I'm all of that. Here's next. It's just been 2 months and she already came knocking at my door. She looked miserable. She didn't show up after that day when she left saying, "Okay." I also didn't call or text her. Why would I? Not then or even later did she realize her mistakes and apologize. Then why do I care? Now when her situation got pathetic, she turned up. She told me she was in a bad spot. She was months behind on her rent, and her landlord was threatening to lock her out. On top of that, she had run out of groceries and didn't know who else to turn to. She was desperate, but I didn't feel sorry for her this time. I told her that I had warned her so many times, given her so many chances, and all she did was throw them away for her junky boyfriend. She tried to guilt trip me, saying I should at least help her for the sake of my nephew. That hit hard. I loved my nephew, and the idea of him going without food or a roof over his head because of his parents' poor decisions made me sick. But at the same time, I knew that continuing to enable Shelley would only make things worse in the long run. She started crying that her son has been hungry and on the verge of malnutrition. I told her that if she was in such dire need of food, she should contact a local food bank or other social groups. There are resources out there for people in her situation, and they could help her. But no, she was too proud for that. She told me she wasn't a beggar and she wasn't going to go to a food bank. I told her, cool, live your ego. I'm done helping. She was like, can't you do this for your nephew? Don't you have any conscience, any responsibility towards him? I could have lectured her again, but it was like talking to a rock. So I just told her that the only thing I could do for my nephew at this point was call CPS and let them handle it. She stormed out of my apartment after that, saying I wanted to separate her from her son. A couple of days later, I got a call from my parents. My sister had run to them, telling them how I had abandoned her and her son and refused to help them when they were in need. My parents aren't well off. They both work full-time just to make ends meet, so they couldn't really help her all this while. But they were disappointed in me for turning my back on my sister. My parents were like, couldn't you please help her run her house for the child's sake? You know we too aren't fond of her life choices either, but what do we do? Can we leave that innocent child to die? We could have helped her, but you know we're getting old and need to save for our retirement and buy a house so that we don't end up in oldies home. We can't help her, but you can, don't you? We need to help her get her finances strong so that she can live on her own and doesn't bother any of us. I said, hold on, guys. Do you all even know the full story? I bet you don't. Then I narrated everything, how she had blown my money on her deadbeat boyfriend instead of enrolling in the skill class. Not once, but twice. They were livid. Shelley had told them only half-truth, that she showed up at my door after 2 months to ask for help, but I turned her down. My parents had sent her the money for the pending rent and also extra to cover her bills and groceries for the next 2 months. After getting the details from me, they felt scammed. I realized I should have filled them in with these details before she reached out to them. It could have saved them their money. They called Shelley and gave her a serious earful, which of course led her right back to my door. This time she wasn't asking for help. She was accusing me of bad-mouthing her to our parents. She was furious and screamed, saying I had no right to involve them and make her look bad. I told her that she had done that all on her own, but she just kept going on about how her boyfriend had been taking care of her and their child while I had abandoned her. Apparently her loser boyfriend was back and was staying with her, and she's too proud that she chose him instead of me. She feels she made the right choice by giving him that money, and now he's going to build an empire out of his garage and keep her like a queen. Only all of this could be true, and she could see through his acts. Her loser boyfriend was here with her because our parents sent her money to run the house for 2 months. Why would he not stay when he's getting free food without lifting a finger? And for the garage story, I don't know. What's the truth? Neither I'm bothered. If it's true, then it's good for her. In a fit of rage, she also admitted that she lied to me about her son's illness at the first instance. Even that money she blew on her boyfriend. I saw red. I couldn't take it anymore. I told her everything I had been holding back for years. I listed all the ways I had supported her, all the money I had given her, all the opportunities I had handed to her on a silver platter that she had just thrown away. I counted every single favor I had done for her, and I told her that if she really thought her boyfriend was doing more for her than I had, then she was living in a delusion. That was the final nail in the coffin. I told her I've cut you off and I want to remain this way, and next time she knocked on my door, she couldn't expect me to answer. She stormed out, calling me pathetic for counting favors on her. I can't believe she threw me an attitude like this. I mean, until now, she portrayed herself to be a victim and timid, and now suddenly she's a lioness who doesn't need any help from me. If she genuinely doesn't need any help, I can't be happier, but if it's ego talking, I pity her. I don't see our relationship getting better anytime soon, if ever. Maybe one day she'll realize what she's done, but I'm not holding my breath until then. Amidst this, I feel bad for her son. Poor soul doesn't deserve this poverty. He's suffering because of his parents' poor decisions. I'll admit I do miss him sometimes. I used to have good times with him, and he was too fond of me. Poor soul. As much as I love my nephew, I can't keep throwing myself into Shelley's mess and expecting different results. At some point, she has to take responsibility for her own life, and it has to be now. I've done all I can, and now I'm done. You do the right thing by setting boundaries. It's not just about money. It's about her refusing to change or acknowledge the help you've already given her. Her attempt to guilt trip you into helping again shows that she still doesn't understand the gravity of her situation. It's not your job to save her from poor decisions, especially when she's not even willing to put in the effort herself. Share your thoughts with us in the comments below. And thank you for joining us today in the rLounge. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. See you soon. And please put your chair back where you found it.